Welcome, Seekers, to another episode of Mystica. I'm Nexa, your host, and today we're doing our second episode ever of our video series, and it is the second episode of the smudging, smoke clearing series that we're doing here for you guys. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about what the tools of the trade are when it comes to smudging, and kind of a little bit of history about them and why you're using them. In a separate video, I'll be going into a little bit more in depth how to use each individual tool, and then I'll do a final video and I'll give you a full kind of how to do a smudging, smoke clearing kind of ceremony for you. So today, let's start off kind of in the very beginning, what everybody talks about when it comes to smoke clearing, and that is the bundles, the sage bundles as they're called. But it's really way more than just sage. So of course you have your traditional white sage bundles that you'll see on TV. You'll see them in almost every new age shop. They're your traditional pure white sage, Salvia alpina. So you'll see them everywhere. They're kind of where a lot of this grew from in these traditional bundles that you see here in front of me. But what you'll see here are only 2 of these bundles in front of me have any white sage in them whatsoever. So there is a whole world of smudging bundles that exists beyond white sage. So please, please, please explore. What you're going to find is a lot of bundles are made for specific purposes. You'll have something for love, prosperity, protection, all kinds of things. So what you'll do is you'll sort of find what bundle might kind of make most sense for what you're doing with your smudging. So maybe you have a bundle for love because you want to bring more love vibrations into your home. You don't need a separate bundle to cleanse your space and to do the love. Any kind of herb burnt can cleanse your space. You can even cleanse your space, kind of a life hack here, with an incense stick. That's right. Single incense stick, you can do it. It's really mostly you, your energy, your intention, and working with the smoke to cleanse your space. That's the most important thing. The herb always comes second. White sage is so prominent because we took our smoke cleansing that we're modernly doing here from the Native American ceremony we call smudging. And their traditional herbs are white sage, and also I have a little sweetgrass braid here. That's another traditional herb that they would use. They would also use tobacco, and then there are some others that they might use. We don't have to use their herbs because we're not following their traditions. That's why you'll hear me refer to a lot of smoke cleansing. If you want to know more on that, I have a video right before this one where I go, what is smudging and why should I call it smoke cleansing? So check that video out and you'll get a little more information behind why I call it smoke cleansing. So anyway, moving right along here, you'll see there's all these different types of herbs in these bundles. One of my absolute favorites that I like to use a lot is a lavender bundle. And it's interesting, it's not just the lavender flowers, but it's actually the leaves. And it smells really, really good. And I love, love, love the energy from it. It's very calming, very soothing, relaxing. And it just kind of feels like this kind of feeling when I use it. So it's one of my favorite ones to use, especially in my personal spaces. My other favorite to use is actually this beautiful, beautiful aromatic wood called Palo Santo. I just love it. Ah, it smells so good. I wish you had smell-o-vision. It smells so, so good. But it's South American. Palo Santo translates to holy wood or the wood of the saints. And it's what their tribes would use, kind of the way our tribes that we know of, traditionally using their white sage, use that. These tribes use the Palo Santo. You can get it in like a chipped form, you can get it in those wooden sticks, you can get it in bigger wooden sticks, it comes in all forms. Most shops you'll see in kind of the little blonde sticks like those, maybe a little thinner, and you'll be able to buy it. They last a really long time. I think I have like a little nub here. Yeah, you'll see the little nub I've been burning, and this has just lasted me a good long time here. So it's wonderful, wonderful stuff. I absolutely love it. And you'll find that when you're using that, I like it because it's kind of a soft, really, really, really kind of gentle cleansing. They actually used to put it in the sick rooms. They would lay Palo Santo chips around the sick rooms and use it to heal people just with the scent of the wood itself, even without burning it. So it's something that is really useful, especially if you have a lot of sickness around your home, or you're cleansing the home after someone who's been ill maybe has stayed there for a while. It's a really good one in connection with health and wellness vibrations as well. But I just love it because it's kind of like a really good, kind of warm feeling, but light and easy. I sometimes find personally for me, white sage can be a little harsh and grating, especially for my respiratory system. So I actually almost never use white sage. But one thing about white sage, as you'll see posted all over the place, is the sustainability of it. You'll find a lot of tribes talk about how it's being over-harvested, how it might actually go extinct. And honestly, the way that Native Americans are connected to it, it's so deep in their spirituality and their kind of religious practices that it's really something they are trying to be very, very protective over. So it's one of those things where if you're going to use it, maybe look into where you're getting it from, make sure that they get it harvested in a sustainable way. That is something that's very important to me. I have my own shop, so I try to make sure that I get something that's harvested by specific tribes and that they've harvested in a sustainable way. But like anything, you can only do the best you can. So we offer so many other options because there are so many wonderful herbs out there that you can buy right in bundles, ready to go, ready to use. You can even create your own bundles. You can take herbs that you harvest outside that you've grown yourself, and you can put them in little bundles. They don't have to be these sort of snug, tight little bundles like these are, really tightly packed, but they do have to have some kind of cotton or natural or like jute twine, because if you use something that is not natural, remember you're going to burn through it as you're using it, and you're going to have to smell it and take those fumes in. So I always recommend something like cotton thread or something. It goes really, really nice, easy to use. It's usually inexpensive if you're going to do your own bundles. They don't have to be quite that tight, but you want them tight enough that they're going to stay together for you as they burn. So find your balance with that, but they don't have to be quite as packed as full as these guys. Some people make them and they're more kind of like tight bouquets, and that works just fine for a lot of people, so find what works for you. You will see on these, a lot of them have these like flowers and things in them, so you don't have to just use the leaves or the stems. I will say this is probably one of my favorite ones, and we just got it in. It's so pretty, so pretty. I have a little tag here to kind of remind me what it has, but it has statice and mullein leaves, and it does have some white sage in this bundle, but I love this. And mullein is one of my favorite herbs, absolute favorites in general to work with. I love how it clears a lot of energy-driven kind of negativity away from you. It's very protective. I love it. It's grown, I live in Pennsylvania, so rurally it grows along the roads and everything. So it's a wonderful, wonderful herb being in here. This is one I haven't got a chance to use yet. We literally just got it in, but it's so pretty. I had to put it in the video so you guys could see it. I do have it for sale. It should be on my website, if not now, very soon. I will link it in the below, but this video isn't to sell stuff. It's just to share information, so don't feel like you have to buy it. So again, you'll find other petals and things like that. The interesting thing about herbs are you can sort of take what the different meanings are and they'll imbue your environment with those meanings as well as cleansing your space. That's where kind of moving on to the second half of how you can do smudging, which actually is closer to some of the traditional ways Native Americans did their smudging. And that is using loose herbs. So loose herbs are kind of like, here's my friend mullein again, my favorite, and then some bay leaves. You take different herbs that are loose and you crush them up and make kind of like a powder. Make your own kind of smudging blend, if you will, of loose herbs. You don't have to crush them up too much. I have a little blend here that I've made myself. I call this my temple incense. I use it before I do any kind of energy work and things like that. And it's just something that I've blended over time in my own way. And you can take them and make your own blends. The most important part about doing that, though, with the loose herbs is going to be researching them enough to know that they are safe to burn. Some herbs are safe to use for some purposes, but when you burn them, they become unsafe to breathe in. So be very careful. Make sure you do your research if you're going to make your own blends. But obviously, if it's something that is in one of these sticks, you can break the sticks apart and use them because someone else has done the research for you when you get the sticks. You can also use things like dragon's blood, which are resins, or frankincense and myrrh. This is a combination of the two, but you can get them separate as well. And resins have been used, again, for centuries. You can combine them with the herbs, and then you can burn them as well. It's a practice that is connected to a lot of our more ancient practices. A lot more ancient, I think, than a lot of these traditional bundles you see here. It's a little bit more modern, the way that they're bundled. But it's something that you can use to kind of really customize what you want to do with your space. So you think of it as the smoke is also clearing, but the energy of the herbs is bringing in and filling the space with new energies. So it's kind of a twofold process you have working when you're doing your energy kind of smoke cleansing that you're doing. The important thing is going to be, once you have your idea whether you're using the bundles or you're going to use the loose herbs, is the vessels that you're going to use. So with your traditional bundles here, your vessels are pretty easy to pick out. So traditionally you'll see these beautiful abalone shells. And their connection with these shells comes with water. It brings that element into what you're doing. The sticks are going to connect you with earth, and your herbs would connect you with earth, and then this vessel would connect you with water. Now, you don't have to use the abalone shells. I think why you see these in TV, movies, new age shops, and everything is they are so darn pretty. They're so pretty. This one obviously I've used quite a bit, so it's not as pretty as it was when I first got it, but it is so gorgeous. You also I have like a white shell here. You can use pretty much any shell. I know in rural Pennsylvania, some of our rivers have these kind of big clam shells, so you could go get your own clam shell, dry it out, and use that. I also have our local potter. We're very lucky. Makes us these beautiful little smudge dishes to share, and they all have different symbols. This is our lotus one of my favorites. We also have one with Buddha. Sometimes we have the Hamsa hands in, so they're always bringing us new ones. But you can use these little smudge plates, and they come in different kind of shapes and sizes from different places, so you can find them all over the place. They're really nice and handy as well. And the important thing if you're going to use a stick and a smudge plate is kind of making sure you balance how you hold them. So when I'm holding them, I like to light my stick first, get the coals going. So I like to use my fingers, and I clamp it together like that and hold it. Then I have it nice and secure, and it's not going anywhere. You do the same thing if you use this one. Same thing, clamp it together. Obviously, you're going to make sure you hold on to this. This might take a fall a little less better than this will, but either one, you don't want to drop them. The important thing about why we use these is going to be this idea that as the ashes fall off of these, they're going to fall wherever you're smudging from. When I first started, I didn't think it was so important to use the shells. I thought, oh, they're nice. I think they're just trying to sell you pretty stuff. I don't think I need the shell. So I started smudging all over my house, and then before I knew it, I had to clean up ashes everywhere. You would be surprised how many places those ashes get to. For real. Also, every once in a while, a coal gets knocked off your smudge stick, and that gets pretty dicey if you don't have one of these to catch it in. So I do suggest, if you're using a smudge stick bundle, get yourself something to catch the ashes in as you're walking. Work smarter, not harder, let it fall in your vessel. It's so much easier. And then like this one, you'll see there's like a little bit, maybe you can see, I don't know if you can, there's a little bit of ashes in there. You can actually take those out and you can sprinkle them at your doorsteps. Some people like to use that as kind of an additional protection. Some people will take those ashes and use them to make protective symbols on things because the protective herbs burnt. So you can use them for all sorts of energy work and things like that. So it's kind of like a little life hack you get where you save them and you can actually use them up. Or you can just return them to the earth, sprinkling them outside in your garden or next to your house in the grass or something like that if you like. So if you're using the loose herbs, you're probably not going to necessarily use the smudging plates and stuff as much. You might want to get something with a little bit thicker of a bottom, or like this sort of a beautiful cauldron here. Or your other option is using a little bit of this cauldron sand. Comes in all sorts of fun colors. We have our purple and blue, and here's a baby blue. I have way more than I have hands to show you, so I just grabbed a couple of our cauldron sands here. And what you do with cauldron sand is use it kind of as an insulator from the bottom of whatever you're using. And what that will do is it'll keep the charcoal tablet that I'm about to talk to you about from kind of burning through the edge of it and keep your hand from getting burnt when you're holding the vessel. That allows you to use something like your shell or like the little plate here I showed you that's much thinner that might get scalded or burnt from the charcoal tablet. So it's kind of nice that you have these available, and the different colors kind of can resonate whatever works for you. You can use sand if you want to. You could technically use really dry dirt, but it might smother the coal a bit or burn or smolder and smell weird. So sand is what I would recommend of some kind. Any kind of sand should do just fine for you. And you'll put it just in the bottom of your vessel. Just about a centimeter or so will do, but whatever suits your fancy. And then when you're done burning, you can sort of scoop off the top whatever ashes are there. Some people like to mix the ashes in, and then after a while, they'll just dump out all the cauldron sand and put new in. It's up to you, whatever kind of works for you in what you're doing. So I will recommend, though, if you're using the loose herbs, I like a vessel with a handle. It makes my life easier. So much easier. Because it's going to be hot, and I can hold onto the handle, and then I can use whatever, and in the next section we're going into fans, but whatever I'm using to direct the smoke, I can use that. It just is handy to have it like that. When I'm having something without a handle on or easy to hold on to, it makes it more tricky. And there's all kinds of vessels you can use. Really, I'm going to say anything heat safe, you should be fine with. I will warn you, anything that is glass or ceramic, pottery in nature, anything like that, if you go from a cold temperature to a really hot temperature, you can crack them. So going inside, outside, if it's cold outside or cold inside and hot outside, things like that, just lighting the charcoal and putting it in the vessel if the vessel itself is cold and not at room temperature can cause it to pop or crack. So just be careful if we're using one of those, because I've had stuff like that happen to me. So I figured just save you some headaches where I have some knowledge. One of the cool ones, and I just got this just the other day, is you can use kind of like a sensor. Like some people might have seen at church. And you can kind of swing this around and sprinkle some herbs on, swing it around. When it stops burning, you can sort of sit it down for a second, take this off, put a little more herbs on your charcoal, and then you can put this back up and swing it around again. So the important thing about that's going to be, with that one in particular, is just making sure you take your time to balance how many herbs you're putting in there. You don't want to smother your coal because it's a little hard to get inside it, but it's nice because it's easier to kind of swing as you're walking. You wouldn't necessarily need a fan with that kind of sensor burner because you're just going to swing it around. So it's kind of nice. It's fun. I've just gotten it. So like I said, I've just gotten a really tiny chance to play with it, but I kind of like it. And you can find all sorts of symbols on top. This one has a pentagram, but they have ones with crosses and triquetras and all sorts of stuff on top. So you can find them in different shapes and stuff like that as well. So, and they're usually called like hanging cone burners if you're looking them up. But I think you can also find like sensors is what they're called as well. Also, if you're using loose herbs, some people like a fancy kind of spoon to put the herbs on the ashes with, kind of honoring this mixture that they've put their energy into. So we have different types of spoons like this. It has a little hollow spot here. And this has the triple moon on it. We have ones with triquetras and pentagrams, I believe, on them from time to time here. It's just a way to sort of honor the work that you've done. And I feel like anytime you put a sacredness or an energy to what you're doing, it just adds to kind of the energy you're building. Another one that we have here that I really like is these little tiny little cups. I found that they give like about, for me, like the perfect amount of like a little herb mixture right on my coal, so I don't smoke myself out, but I also don't often smother my coal. So it's really nice. I like these a lot. I really, really do. So that's kind of enough on the burners themselves, but one quick thing before I move on to the next one. I forgot this when we were talking about loose herbs, but they're super duper handy. You obviously have your mortar and pestle here to mix your herb mixture up into, but if you're using just some leaves, these herb grinders are super handy. You take some leaves and things and put them in here, take the top on, and you just fit them together and you kind of grind them back and forth. And they'll grind your herbs up for you. Pretty handy. A lot of people like these. Some people know what they are, some people don't. We have smaller ones, bigger ones. This one has brass pentagram in it. There we go. And we have ones with triquetras and the triple moon, things like that. But you can find them virtually anywhere. They're used for all sorts of things. But again, like that herb grinder, just like a mortar and pestle, if you have them, please keep them separate from like the ones you use in the kitchen for the ones you use for stuff you're making like incense and stuff like that with. Because some of the herbs that are safe to burn for incense, like the resins especially, you do not want to eat. They're toxic to consume. So you want to make sure that you keep them completely separate. I like to keep them in a completely separate space in my house so that no one ever gets confused between the two. So keep your mortar and pestle and your grinder that you're using for your kind of energy work and your herbs that you don't want to eat in a separate space. That way they do not get used by accident for stuff you're going to put in your mouth. I don't care how good you think you cleaned it. There's always a chance for oils or something like that to get in there. And it's just never worth the risk to me. It just isn't. So next we're going to move on to our feathers and fans. So you always see a lot on TV that people are using either these kind of big fans or big feathers when they're doing their cleansings. You'll see here I have these really cool kind of painted feathers. I love them. They're so pretty. We also have this cup of natural feathers, which are also beautiful. I love them a lot. But what we also have is I had a Native American gentleman make me this beautiful goose feather. It's a goose wing, I should say. It's lovely. And he also made this beautiful rooster fan for me. And I do love these. They both are wonderful to use and have great energies. You also can get really, really big feathers like this. And this is a turkey feather. Normally you'll see them, they'll be darker and kind of barred, but this is a lighter one. And then one of my personal favorites, because I found it outside, is this beautiful little black turkey feather, vulture feather. It's so pretty. I love it because I found it. And that's the other thing. You can go find your own feather. You don't need to buy it if you don't want to. And you can have many feathers. That is one of the really cool things about them. What a lot of people don't know or don't think about is the fact that these feathers, you can connect to the spirits of the animals that they actually came from. And you can use that to kind of enhance the work that you're doing. For instance, goose is a totem animal of protection in a lot of Native American belief systems. So if you were going to do smudging and you wanted to add that extra protective energy to your space, you can sort of call this animal forward while you're using this wing to do your smudging and ask that kind of guardian spirit to watch over your space and add that energy into what you're doing. So it's really, really cool that you can also call in the energies. I actually have a pheasant fan, and that's a bird that's considered very healing, and I use that a lot in my own healing work that I do. So it's really cool that you can add additional energy work in. And the fans themselves are going to connect you with the element of air, which is really cool. Now, also, some people find that they don't like using the feathers. Even these that are painted and stuff like that, they find that it makes them nervous. So we do have things like these. These are completely made from plants. There's a little stick, and these are all reeds. Some of the reeds are dyed, but they're all natural. And this is a way for somebody, especially somebody who's vegan, who doesn't want to use any animal products, that they can use a fan. And they can have that as well without needing to use anything that came from an animal or that represents that it came from an animal. Because there are feathers that you can get that are real animal feathers and feathers that are manufactured animal feathers. Usually I would say feathers that have more wild coloring are probably likely to be synthetic versus the ones that are more natural looking. But you would want to ask whoever you're buying them from whether they're real or not, if that matters to you. It really just depends on whether it matters to you. If you care, it matters. If you don't, it doesn't. But I will say one really cool thing about real feathers, like this one, these real feathers, are if you go outside and you find them yourself, a really cool kind of life hack. If it's a little bit dirty, pick it up anyway if it's a feather that kind of attracts your attention. Because you can clean them because they're real feathers. Just like real birds get wet, their feathers get wet. You can wash them with a little bit of Dawn and some water and clean them right up. That is the beauty of them. And when I clean them, I always try to, after I rinse them out, put them back into a nice feather shape. So that way when they dry looking really nice. But that is kind of a little way that you can clean them up, make them look pretty, and then you can use them and they're clean. So that's really, really a cool way to go out and find some feathers. And if you're going to go out and find some feathers, a little tip for you, a place to go that's usually pretty easy that most people have access to is like a local park with a pond or like a little creek or something that has a population of ducks or a population of geese or something like that. You can find some pretty big feathers from geese and also duck feathers. Here's one of them, and they're pretty handy, pretty nice. Good little feather. You can also find some nice feathers from roosters. So if you know somebody with some farm animals, you can get some from them. Or guinea hens. They're these really cool speckled feathers. Aren't they pretty? So you can find them all over the place. They're not as hard to find as you think. But a lot of new age shops will have them. Like mine, I have a ton of feathers, all sorts of different kinds. So you can go and find them all over the place. I will say, kind of as a side warning about natural feathers, or unnatural feathers, the more fluffy ones with like that are mostly this fluffy stuff tend to be trickier when you're trying to use them for smudging because they tend to not have a very strong spine, this part here. So when you're trying to direct smoke with them, they sort of just bend all over the place and don't do a very good job of it. So for me, they were too frustrating to use, though sometimes they're very pretty, especially when you get like peacocky feathers that look like that. So I like to stick to ones with stronger spines in them. But you do what you want to do for you. I will warn you though, if you try to clean a feather that's dyed like these are and painted, you're probably going to have a mess. So only clean feathers that are completely natural. And I guess it's a good way to see if it's natural. If you're not sure, give it a good clean. See if you start to get paint and things running. Because a real bird obviously is not going to have their colors run if they're a real bird. So a good way to sort of test that theory. So let me put my feathers over here. So the next thing we're going to go into here are these important things right here. Tongs. There's many different kinds. This one has, you will not probably be able to see it, there's a pentagram engraved on it. I have obviously used them quite a bit. So these are very, very, very important. The reason they're important are for the charcoal. And there's kind of a few reasons for that. First off, charcoal is very messy. So you're going to get your fingers black when you touch the charcoal. I will open this up here on camera for you because I forgot to get it ready before we started filming the video like I meant to. But here we go. This is what it looks like, a charcoal wafer. Isn't it beautiful? It's kind of concave on the inside, rounded on the top. Beautiful. So this is a self-lighting charcoal. Swift Light is a brand we have currently in stock. I like that brand. There are a lot of good brands out there. Sometimes we have other brands, depends on who our vendor has. But this is a good brand. But don't feel like you have to buy this brand. Buy what you can, buy what works for you. But you want these self-lighting charcoal, not the charcoal bricks for your grill. It's not going to work the same. I don't suggest it. But these are super handy because when you light them, they're going to spark and spit. And you'll see that in my next video I'm going to do, which is the video that is the how to use video, because this one's running a bit long, so I'm going to make sure I separate them. But you don't want to be holding it with your fingers because it's going to hurt, because it's going to spark and spit, and before you get to put it down, it's going to hurt. I mean, you do you, but I don't recommend it. Also, a little life hack on those, you can actually break them up into halves or quarters. I like to break mine up into rough quarters because oftentimes I'm doing a small space, my bedroom or my room that I do my meditations in. So, or if I'm just smudging a person, I don't need the entire wafer. That entire wafer will burn for a while. So if you're not doing a whole house, and even with a whole house, a lot of times you can get away with half. So try less. Less is more. You can always light more charcoal. Find out how much you need. It'll save you some money. You're not going through it as fast. But by all means, if you want to light the full one up, you go ahead. Enjoy. When you light it, it'll take a little while for it to catch. So give it a good time to glow. And then I always recommend don't smother it with your herbs. You want to sprinkle the herbs on top, but not so much that it starves the charcoal because the fire's got to have oxygen. But I love the charcoals. I will say with the loose herbs, if you try to burn them without the charcoal, they're just going to kind of smother and keep going out. So it's going to be a bad time, most likely. The easiest way to do it is really honestly having these charcoal. If you had a fire pit you were throwing some herbs into, of course they'd burn fine because there's already lit charcoals in that fireplace. So you really want to have this charcoal to let it burn. It'll smoke. It'll do beautiful things for you. And they're not that expensive. They really aren't. I think in my shop they're like $4 for the big roll of them. So, and they last forever, especially if you break them up as you're using them. So they're great. I love them, and they'll save you a lot of time. If you're using the bundles, you don't need them unless you're going to save the bits that fall off your bundles and burn them loose later. Another life hack. You're welcome. So, last but surely not least is we have our vessels. We've decided how we're going to do it, loose or bundled, all that jazz. How do we light it on fire? What method do we use? It's important. We have to talk about it. We all have to talk about it. So, I like my crazy cat lighter. It works, lights things on fire, makes me laugh, brings me joy. I like my crazy cat lighter. But there are some people who follow a school of thought that they prefer to use an older style method, such as a match, to light their energy working things on fire. They feel like a lighter is a modern invention, and so it takes something away from the process. My personal belief is if in ye old ancient times, my crazy cat lighter existed, and was, floating around out there, they probably would have used it. I would have used it. So I think that it's just one of those things that as technology develops, we use the new technologies. However, if you are a purist and you feel that lighting a match is more spiritual for you than using a lighter, you go and you thrive in your practice. I will never tell anybody that their practice is wrong because we all have our own paths. One thing you'll find with me as you learn and watch my videos as I go, and it will sound like a broken record, I will always say, take what resonates and leave the rest. None of us are experts here. Just some of us have done it longer than others. Some of us talk more on camera than others. But honestly speaking, each of our paths is so different that no one can really tell you what's right for you, except for you. If you have any knowledge to share on any of these top things that I've shared today, or have any tips or tricks for anybody else, please, by all means, share them in the comments section below. Help us grow our community. And speaking of that, like us, share us. Help us get out into the world, into the wilds. Thank you, Seekers, for joining us on another grand, great adventure. As always, keep questioning, and we'll see you soon.